Just when you think you have all the answers, they go and change the question. Warhammer 40,000 Darktide Unlocked and Loaded dropped one day early, meaning we had to re-record this intro last minute. Their new update is out and it brings with it an itemization overhaul for weapon progression, a new mission type, a new party finder, and if you are watching this between September 26th and October 10th, there is currently a time-limited special event going on in-game as well. We sat down recently with some of the fine folks from Fat Shark to talk about the update, talk about the game in general, and how to approach overhauling an entire system in a game, which they have done before, and they are dedicated to making sure that their games have longevity. It was a great interview. Hopefully you enjoy watching it, and feel free to comment on what your favorite class is, or if you're trying Darktide. Don't forget that Vermintide recently had things going on in it as well. If you're a Warhammer fan, there's a lot of good games out at the moment. Hopefully you enjoy the interview, and we'll see you at the end of it. We mentioned it before, but could you just talk again a little bit about how you're trying to respect the time that players have already put into the game by making sure that the weapons that they've collected and all their blessings and everything still matter, and have kind of given them a head start?
Yeah, I mean, this whole update is about trying to really respect the player's game time. So it is about removing randomness, and it is about giving you a deterministic way of unlocking what you want in the game, right? And with that, we of course had to respect the time that players already had put in the game. So we will, all of our players that already have a massive inventory of weapons, you will be keeping all of those weapons. They will stay the same. Some of them might get some updated blessings because we are doing some updates to the blessings, but they will stay the same. We're not sort of removing any weapon, we're not removing anything. The only thing this will do is unlock your potential to actually make some of those weapons that might have been almost perfect. Now you'll be able to make them actually perfect. So yes, we really want to respect all of our players' time. And also the blessing library that you have acquired will turn into mastery points, so you will have a head start in this new system. Yeah.
And also when we release new weapons, we want the players to feel like they understand what is the content that they're getting, right? So if we release a new weapon, instead of diluting the pool of blessings, we want them to feel like, great, I get a bunch of hours of new content, something exciting they can look forward to, right?
It's really interesting that you mentioned like dilating the pool, because that's a very key aspect that I think players are aware of, but they don't actually think about it until it happens. Where when you start playing a game like Darktide, you have a very kind of wide view. You're picking up everything, like every piece of loot is interesting to you, and as you progress, 50, 100 hours in, you kind of funnel down because you've got your gear, you've got your loadout. You've put the time and effort into leveling it up, you've spent the currency, and so the things that you're getting start becoming just white noise in the background. And this really feels like you're kind of trying to make sure that loot remains interesting, or that it actually just stays a focus, that people can like see something drop and think that's cool. I want to try a new build, and it's actually not just a case of, oh, this is all white trash, let's just get rid of this.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of things that we've added into this update that help with that. First is that even your first weapon can still be empowered to be a relevant weapon in the game. And second, that we have sort of two new systems that we changed. One is the sacrifice system, that even if you have weapons, I don't know, you have a bunch of chainswords that maybe don't have the stats that you want or anything like that, you can still sacrifice them and get a bunch of mastery points for it. If, let's say, you've been spending a lot of time with your combat knife and you love it, and I'm a combat knife guy, this is my build, I perfected it, I have the perfect blessings, but I have like a bunch of chain axes on my inventory that I would really like to try. You can sacrifice those chain axes, get a head start on your mastery there, so you don't have to sort of grind from the beginning, right? So it's part of a system that as you first start playing Darktide, you have a lot of experimentation, because you're getting a bunch of new weapons, new powers. Then as you sort of start going into your more comfy build, start getting better at the game, you start sort of nailing down on what is your play style. And then as you start you start getting all these drops and stuff, like, you might want to experiment a bit more because you have this backlog of weapons that allow you to do that.
And since we're allowing players to like the freedom of choice to choose which blessings to unlock at what time. It's going to be really, really quick to be able to, if there is a blessing that is required for you to be able to play the build that you want, you will be able to just unlock that as the first blessing you get, and then if there's a second one, you can get it as your second one. Sure, you won't have the most powerful version of that blessing, but at least that sort of the gameplay of that blessing will be available to you after like only playing like maybe 1 or 2 missions. So it's a really quick system to get into and to be able to unlock that build that you want really fast. And then you can work on making it like the most powerful version of that build. Might take a little bit longer, but we're sort of tweaking the numbers and seeing how long we want it to take. But it's not going to take you hours and hours. It's going to be like maybe 8 hours or 10 hours invested in a weapon family to fully unlock everything that is available for that weapon.
And that's without the help of like sacrificing.
Exactly,
weapons
exactly.
And that's a really good point, right? Like it's
Can you?
yeah. No. Oh, sorry. No, but that's a really good point, right? Because that's without sacrificing the weapons, right? So
Yeah.
you might do the calculation of like, oh, you need this much weapons, this much hours, but not really, because you have the sacrifice feature in it. And also what we've done is like we take in the marks and we combine them into a weapon family.
Yeah.
So it's not per mark, it's per weapon family, right?
Yeah.
So your last guns have one mastery track on it, so it's not per single mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Important to note that there are several last gun families though. So
Yeah.
Yes,
but
yeah.
yeah.
So this may come off as a bit of a weird question, but when it comes to Darktide and Vermintide before it, you guys have a not so much a reckless abandon, but more just you're so willing to just go, this system doesn't work, let's overhaul it. And that's something that a lot of developers aren't willing to do, because it's you could risk alienating a player base, you also could risk breaking things.
Yeah.
But this isn't the first time you've overhauled a system.
No.
Like this just comes easy to you, I guess.
Easy is a strong word, but yeah.
I'm sure there's a bit of craziness in there as well.
There's a lot of stress and worry that starts with it.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean we are long-term committed to our games, right?
Yes, of course.
So if we have a system that we and it's hard to know when you're developing a game before you have actual players actually playing the game and putting their actual hours into it.
Yeah.
Knowing where the pain points are. Like you might think that this is going to be fine. The loot system is like okay. We're testing it like internally. It's really about after you put in like 1,000 hours, new problems arrive and new types of problems become big problems. So we have to be open to being a bit brave and doing stuff like this, where we actually take a system that we thought was okay when we released it, and then like now after hearing the massive amounts of feedback about it, like okay, this has some issues. And also we didn't really realize the issue of diluting the pool with adding new weapons, because like of course we want to add new weapons. It sounds like a really fun thing, right? And it is a fun
especially
thing.
in a game
But
this.
then we realized after doing that for a while, like, actually we're doing a bad thing here. We're actually making it harder for players to get what they want, and that's a bad thing. But it's a really cool thing. Like you want new weapons. I want a double-barreled shotgun. You know, like that is cool. I like double-barreled shotguns. So we really need to fix that problem, and then we need to really think about it and do that. And I mean, it's part of our philosophy of how we wanted to manage these games is to be a bit brave and do cool stuff to make them relevant again, and make them interesting again. Because after a while, I mean, you get tired of systems in games, and like it gets a bit stale. So you need to change things up to make it interesting.
Yeah.
And these foundational changes is what allows us to do other things in the future that we want to do, right? Yeah. We also found like some pain points on doing balance changes, right? If we have things that are locked in, like if you do change your blessing and one gets locked, if we do a balance change on that weapon, we're basically affecting your weapon without giving you the agency to change that, right? And this new system is going to allow us to be able to do that kind of stuff and actually allow the players to experiment more and play around more and remove those sort of pain points that we have right now. And yeah, these are foundational blocks of the game, right? So of course we're very careful and we test with our community members. We're trying to communicate with our open community as much as we can about the changes.
Yeah.
And we are not rushing these things out. We're taking our time to develop them, to get feedback from the community and make sure that they're involved are part of the process, right? Like when, as Victor was pointing out, right, when we release a game, it's not ours anymore, right? It's sort of part with the community also and the players that play the game. It's important that we involve them when we do these sort of big changes. And we did that with the classes, and we're doing that now with the Administration Overhaul.
Yeah, I mean, we actually intended to release this before the summer, but then we tested it with our community, and their feedback made us understand that, okay, it's not ready. We need to do more things here. So we then spent the whole summer testing with a wider audience as well and doing a lot of tweaks to it.
It's really impressive to see devs actually taking that time or realizing that like the system doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because like when it came to even the release of Darktide, you pushed it back and like you were very tight-lipped on actually giving a release date in general, because internally it must have been like, no, we have to make sure we get this
there
right.
There was a lot of pressure of doing that, yes.
Yes.
But we were like, no.
But it's great to see, especially like you mentioned, like Warhammer in general just has such a very healthy community behind it and a very passionate community.
Yes.
And you've had Vermintide and Vermintide 2. Like Vermintide 2 is now, I think,
6.5 years.
Yeah, years old. Darktide 2 is 2 now.
Almost in November.
And like these are long-term games. These are games that people spend thousands of hours in, and so to respect their time, and also to try and not only give your team like the best game to be working on, but also the players the best environment to be spending their time in. It must be, for you guys, it must be great to be part of such a passionate community and like getting that feedback, having people so vocal.
It is invaluable as a developer to have a really strong community to lean on and to ask questions and to and I mean sometimes maybe they don't think that we are listening to them as well, or like, but we are constantly reading everything. We are always there, lurking in the shadows and reading absolutely everything that you are writing and so forth. So we are always listening.
So I have to ask then, favorite class for Darktide?
It actually changed for me. I started out as a 100% Zealot player because I'm a very aggressive player. So I started out as a Zealot. I cannot sort of I cannot play the Psycho because I just blow up.
I'm aggressive, so I went Ogre, so I can just like.
And that's my new. After the class overhaul, I switched over to the Ogre, and now I'm a 100% Gunlugger Ogre. I just love to shoot things. So that's what I'm playing now. Yeah, most of the time.
I'm a Psyker guy.
Of course you are.
Yeah, what can I say? Like I'm a Psyker guy. I feel like, very dynamic, it's a great gameplay. And on my personal account, that's my main, basically.
Excellent.
Yeah, especially after the class overhaul, it gives you so many varieties. You can be a lot more supportive. You can be a bit more damaged. Like it's the variety of gameplay that we got now. It's
incredible. It's as a Warhammer fan, it's just so good to see.
And actually, talking about the optimization overhaul, I do have a couple of Psyker weapons that have a really good stat distribution.
Oh, they're going to come back around now.
But the power level is not maximized, so I'm looking forward for when we release this, so I can just like bump those up and like get my perfect little weapon to play
Excellent.
with.
Well, I'm looking forward to trying out the overhaul. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
What about that? That was a good one, right? As a Warhammer fan, that was a good one. Yeah, that was a good one. You should tell us down below. That was a good one. Good one. Yeah.